Oliver from Taylor Mammon is going to be talking about mathematical accuracy, bioavailability, and what it means to the cannabis market. Oliver's worked in the world of CBD for 5 years, and he's currently the chief infusiologist at Taylor Mammon. Taylor Mammon is a bespoke white label manufacturing service. Oliver is a firm believer in the power of education when selling CBD, and his education on this subject is second to none. Without further introduction, because I'm sure Oliver will introduce himself as well, ladies and gentlemen, Oliver Mammon.
Yay. Hi. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming down to see me. All right. I have a tendency, I tangent a little bit, so I'm going to try and stick to the notes, but I'm going to leave them over here. Hopefully I don't destroy anything. And if I need to go back to them, I will. So first of all, I just want to start with this, okay? We have the luxury of working with the most versatile compound and set of compounds on this planet. And we are so lucky. And it's so important that we understand what these compounds actually do for the patients. And it's so important for us to have a almost an understanding of how lucky we are to have such a wide selection, of cannabinoids at our fingertips with such a variety of abilities to help. So just bear that in mind over the course of the presentation. Anyway, so my name is Oliver Mammon. At age 7, I was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome, and it was really, really tough. I don't know if any of you know about Tourette's syndrome. It's like a cluster of obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit disorder, and it's like a cluster of obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit disorder, and some form of physical or verbal spasm. So my childhood between the age of like 7 and 14 was pretty tough. I spent years in and out of therapy. I was twitching a lot. I had all these anxiety-based issues that kind of dominated my life. When I was 15, I tried weed for the first time and actually took away all of my twitches and everything. And over the next few years, I self-medicated until around 21, 22 years old when I bought my first bottle of CBD, and I found that my ailments could be treated without me having to intoxicate myself and without me having to impair my other abilities. And I've got this obsessive compulsive disorder, so I've got this high tension anxiety anyway, and I really found that the CBD kind of enabled me to find all the benefits of what I needed from cannabis without any of the negative impacts I was getting from smoking. So that's like the background of my story. So at age 22, started using CBD products. I found it very difficult out there. I tried every website, every store, went out to America. I bought a lot of different products, and what I found was answers were not there. So I wanted to know what the milligram dose is. I wanted to know what the exact precise milligram of CBD was in a product. I wanted to know where the CBD was grown, where it was sourced. Was it a full spectrum? Was it an isolate? I wanted to know, just questions which I needed to have in order to understand how this compound was helping me. Because it's all about how the compound helps the patient, or if you're using other cannabinoids, how those cannabinoids help the patient and what the patient actually needs. That's what this is all about. So, 22 years old, start messing around, and I found it very hard to find what I needed. I found stuff. I found black paste MCT oil blends, which varied from 80 milligrams to 200 milligrams, tasted like crap, but it helped. I found, dodgy isolate-based products, which claimed to be 1,000 milligrams, which didn't work, and other ones claimed to be 1,000 milligrams that did. And there was little consistency, and there was little reliability, and there was very little there was just very little for a patient to work with. So, a few years later, I'm like, mind my French, fuck this shit, and I started to make my own products. So I sourced a really reliable farm in California. At the time, my brother had moved out to California. He was working in the industry out there, and he managed to open a few doors for me. And I actually found Jen Canna. And when I found Gencanna, I remember my brother sent me through Gencanna 5 grams of CBD in a little envelope and arrived at my door, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? I've never seen like pure isolated CBD before, and I was like, let's start. So I took some extra virgin olive oil and I mixed it with the CBD, and I made my first ever tongue drops, then did a bit of research, realized everyone else was using MCT oil because virgin olive oil has a flavor and MCT doesn't, made MCT drops. Then I thought, you know what, let's make a tincture, and let's make balms, and let's make creams, and let's make bath bombs, and let's make lotions, and let's make body oils and beard oils and vape liquids, and it kind of just spiraled out of control to the point where we now manufacture hundreds of different products in hundreds of different ways. And it all started from this patient who needed something with no ability to get it. Now, times have changed. 7-8 years later, fully involved in this industry. We have a company, Taylor Mammon. It's the most beautiful stall here, the 4 pillars of society right there, the yellow one. I wish I could tell you a number. I didn't get it. Just know it's the big yellow one. With Taylor Mammon, we are a bespoke white label CBD accelerator. We enable your dreams with cannabinoids to come true. So if you have a product in mind that you want to create, or something specifically for a patient that you want to create, or something specifically for yourself that you want to create, we want to create it for you. Why? Because endocannabinoid systems are unique, people are unique, therefore the products they need are unique. This market needs to be the most diversely populated marketplace available. Why? Because me with my anxieties and my OCDs and my ADHDs and my Tourette syndromes need X. You with your post-sport recovery or your cramp or your muscular dystrophy or whatever you have need Y. And person over there with their other ailments, they need something completely different. And it's very important that there's a consistency and a reliability in the products that we all manufacture, because when a patient like me finds what they need, they become beholden to us. And if we then change our recipes, or if we change the products which we create, they are left in the dark. And what we should be trying to do is creating almost this world of light, this transparent world where the patient gets exactly what the patient needs, because that's what matters. All right, all of us here who are making anything on a weekly basis, who are designing products on a weekly basis, for whoever we are designing them for, it's all about the patient. The patient are keeping our doors open, the patients are keeping our lights on, and the patients are the reasons why we're here. And being a patient, it's the only reason why I'm here. So my talk today, that's my introduction. My talk today is about mathematical accuracy, bioavailability, and what it means to the patients. Because it started off as, my title was what it means to the global cannabis industry. But it's not the cannabis industry, it's the patients, because without the patients, there's no industry. Without the activists screaming, I need this, there's none of us here supplying it. Without those poor kids, you know, like the little, what's his name, Billy Caldwell, without like the little Billy Caldwell, or, you know, Callie's kid, you know, like who's just an absolute soldier. Without those kids who needed what they need, we are not here to provide them what they need, and there is no market. And it's almost this perpetuating circle which we need to maintain in order to, you know, create the world which we want to create. So, and that introduction is done. Fine. The number one thing when creating a mathematically accurate, bioavailable product is sourcing your cannabinoids. You have to know where your cannabinoids is coming from. So I have the quote I use. A house is built brick by brick, but from the foundation it starts. Okay? Every single building out there, have a lovely day, guys. All right, every single building out there starts from the foundation. It's very important that when building a CBD product, you have a solid foundation. I always say that foundation is your supply of CBD, okay? Because you need to know full well that however you start your manufacturing process, the product you're manufacturing with is an efficient, mathematically accurate product which you can then work with. It's something which has legs for you to stand on. It's very important. All right, and I don't know if you know, there's thousands of different types of CBD. There's distillates, there's isolates, there's black paste. Distillates come in everything from 50 all the way to 80%. Majority of distillates on this market are extremely questionable, and I believe that they are spiked with CBD to make them stronger concentrations. But it's important for you to find a source you can rely on. It's important for you to find a supplier of CBD that enables you to operate your business without looking over your shoulder. Because what happens is you create a product, you create a 1,000 milligram tincture. All right, now let's say you're working with isolates just for the sake of math. You create a 10% isolated CBD tincture. You're going to put 1 gram of isolate in with around 8.5 grams of MCT oil. Because of the weight measure of the MCT oil, it's, 1 mil is not 1 gram. So you end up with this 9.5 gram mixture, which is approximately 10 mil. If your 1 gram of isolate is not 1,000 milligrams to start with, because the person you've bought off provides a low quality product, the person you bought off certificate of analysis is not accurate, your 1,000 milligram tincture is not 1,000 milligram tincture. It is whatever the certificate of analysis or whatever the analysis of the product will say it will be. And this happens a lot more with distillate. We get sold distillates as 80%, 85%, 95%. I only have one true reliable source for distillate. I only have him. He's like, there aren't that many people who come to me with a product, with certification, with legs for me to stand on. It doesn't happen in this world. And we need to, we need the solid foundation in order for us to, be able to carry on building the rest of our business. And without it, there is no product, there's no mathematical accuracy, there's no bioavailability, and there's nothing. So the first thing is sourcing those cannabinoids. All right. All right. I've used this analogy before. Have you ever heard about, like a graded coin or a graded diamond, okay? You take a diamond, you send it off for GIA certification, it comes back to you, it's in a little plastic container, numbers on the outside of the plastic container. If I remove that diamond from that container, does it still match up to the certificate? And then that's the question, you receive a non-sealed bag of isolate or a non-sealed bag of distillate, a clip-top jar, a Kilner jar of sorts. It's not sealed. It can have anything in there. Anyone could have poured anything in there. You receive a printout certificate of analysis, which theoretically anyone could have written, or with Photoshop nowadays, anyone could have edited. How do you trust that that is what that is? It's this complicated game where we're almost losing before we start. We have to know full well that, that trail of liabilities is there, and it's so important just for everything. And it's that clip-top jar which we all buy. We've all been there. We buy 100 grams, 1,000 grams, 2,000 grams. How can you be aware? How can you be 100% sure that that is that 95% distillate? And it's just, I urge you all to, seriously quiz your suppliers. I rip my fucking supplier to shreds. I make him give me documents, which, to be honest with you, no one supplies to anyone. Why? Because I want to make sure. It's so important, because it's not about me. It's about the patient. All right? At the end of the day, I need to make sure that all my ducks line up in order for the final duck to be in the row. It's starting from the bottom. It's, building up, and it's so important for it's so important to start in that way with a mathematical foundation. Now, what are you creating a product for? When designing a CBD product, it's very important to have the end goal in mind. So many people design CBD products and then assume that that CBD product can go and affect all the ailments which are out there. So you hear gentlemen talking about how CBD has helped their knees, or CBD has helped arthritis, CBD has helped this, CBD has helped that, but CBD is not generic. There are so many different products out there, so many different variants of these, so many different varying carriers of this compound. It's important to know what you're designing from the start. So if you're designing something to target CB2 receptors, use a balm, use a cream, don't use drops. If you're designing something to target CB1 receptors, don't use a balm, use drops. It's important to understand what you're designing and how and why, because there's always a purpose. The patient is always the end goal, and the patient the patient should always be in mind. We create products for people on a regular basis, and they always say, I want the product to be this, I want the product to be that. They don't say what they want the product to do. And it's important to focus on what people want the product to do. Like the efficacy of a product is the most important thing, and that should be the starting goal, not the end goal. You don't design and think, what can we use this for? It's design a product with the end goal in mind. All right, it's very important, and it makes the patient get what they deserve. The patient deserves reliability, and they deserve consistency, and they deserve longevity. They deserve to know for what they can come back to this product on a regular basis. Now, that only happens when a product's designed specifically for a patient. These things don't just happen. Things are planned, and it's important for us to plan. It's important for us to go out there and actually orchestrate this so the patient gets what they want. It's not just patient looking, it's us providing and us actually giving them what they actually need. Fine. Now, in order to do this for the patient, we have to educate ourselves on receptors. We have to educate ourselves on carrier methods. We have to educate ourselves on what products actually do and how. It's very important for us to understand what a product does. It doesn't necessarily mean make a medicinal claim, but it's understanding what a product does. And if you can correlate products with receptors, then there's an education there for a patient which they can kind of use for the rest of their treatment almost. You've got. So I met this lady before. This lady before, she comes up to me, she goes, is it possible for you to redesign a CBD product? I go, explain to me. She goes, she has this friend of hers, she's been getting this CBD oil from Amsterdam, from Holland, and it's cured her cancer. I was like, what do you mean it's cured? She goes, it's cured her cancer. Other friends have tried other CBD oils. It hasn't cured their cancer, but this one has. Could you rebuild it? Theoretically, in a world where isolated compounds exist, we could rebuild that for that patient. Having to use distillates and having to use things which are, plant extracted, it's quite difficult. But the patient needs that. So there's got to be a way for us to provide the patient that. There's someone else we met. I heard this story. So my girlfriend gets very bad period pains. And I designed this product in the last couple of months for her. She has very bad period pains. And I got approached by a friend of mine. His mother has the same issue. She met this dude up in Birmingham who's created a balm. And this balm, you apply it to your belly button. Okay, because apparently there are receptors within your belly button, there are nerve endings and stuff left over from the umbilical cord, which enable extremely fast absorption and bioavailability to that area which is causing such distressing pain. So I created this balm for my girlfriend. It's a 3,000 milligram in 60 mil. It's very, very, very high dosage. And she uses it. And she now has no period pains. Now that product was designed for her. It wasn't designed, it's not a balm that I created. I'm like, try it on your period. It's designed for her. Why not? Why not design a product with an idea in mind so the product's actually efficient, the product actually does what we want it to do? Why not have that in mind that, this is what I need to target. I need to target what I'm now calling a CB4 receptor, because I had no idea belly buttons actually did any of this shit. But, I need to target that point, which no one's ever talked to me about before, and I've never heard. I've had conversations with everyone. No one's ever told me to apply a cream to apply a cream to inside the belly button, and it will relieve a menstrual cramp, or it will relieve a period pain. I've never had that. I've never been told that. We experimented. We found it works. I'm sharing that with all of you because the patients deserve the help, and we need to use our brains because it's not complicated science, it's trial and error, but there's nothing wrong with us trying. There's nothing, it's only beneficial to the patient. It's all about the patient. And it should always be with the patient in mind because they are what has enabled us to all be here. Without them, once again, none of us are here. Without the patients, there is no UK CBD market. There is no UK Cannabis Market. There's nothing. There's just a bunch of people selling another health compound. They give us our power, and we should give them what they deserve.